Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello and welcome to the 71st episode of the Shipping Podcast. This episode is a little bit different. I am meeting a skipper. He is an expert in match racing. Actually, the only skipper that has won 6 world championships. I hope you understand that this episode is a metaphor. It's a way of thinking when you're putting together a team, in a project or at work. I met Ian Williams on July 15th, so I do this in the middle of the summer as well. But the World Championships in M32 catamarans were held on an island called Marstrand, just outside Gothenburg. So I took the opportunity to go there and meet with Ian. I did try 2 weeks before when they had a match race in the port of Gothenburg, but he was too busy then. Of course he was. I felt very privileged to sit down and talk with the skipper. The only place we could talk was actually in the press area of the World Championships. So what you hear in the background are either happy sailors who have won the championships or the journalists that are trying to report about it. I'm sorry, but there were no other place for us to sit down. So I give you Ian Williams. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Ian Williams. I'm the skipper for Team GAC Pindar Sail Racing Team.
And what is your background? Have you always been a sailor?
I've always sailed right from birth. Both my parents were very keen sailors. So I started racing sailing boats when I was about 9 and have sailed ever since. But I haven't always been a professional sailor. I studied and qualified as a lawyer in London and worked there for 4 years before becoming a full-time sailor in 2005.
And I understand that you work for, I call them GAC, but you call them GAC, don't you?
Yes, GAC or GAC, I think, is the less formal term. They're my sponsors on the sailing regattas that we do, primarily the World Match Racing Tour. We've been sailing with GAC Pindar since 2011, and also now on the Scandinavian Series M32 regatta, which is a series of 5 regattas around Scandinavia. We've just come from Gothenburg. Next one is Oslo, and we sail that in the M32 class.
But I understand you also work for GAC, don't you?
No, I don't. I don't work for GAC, but they are my sponsor.
Okay, because I understood that you are one of their resources.
Well, I think they have used some of the systems that I've developed within the sailing team. I've given speeches to GAC on those systems and those processes. And I think that they've converted them, used them to an extent with their own management training.
Could you please tell a little bit about those programs that you have put together there?
Yes, well, it's really the philosophy of how I go about putting together a sailing team. The thing for me is that it's not about writing a set of job descriptions and then finding the people to fit those job descriptions. I would much rather find people who have complementary skills and personalities and then fit the job descriptions around the individuals. Of course, there's a certain number of roles that need to be fulfilled on board a sailing boat. There are roles around the speed of the boat and trimming the sails and tuning the boat. There are roles around the handling, which is more the physical side of pulling the sails up and down and in and out. And then there are tactical roles about decision-making about which route we take around the course. And so when I put the team together, I try to make sure that I've got all those skills covered amongst the people. And then really you allocate the roles out according to where you have the skill sets at the time. And that's something that I feel it takes quite a lot of work to have a team function in that way, because initially the roles are not very well defined. But over time, I think it allows people to really work to their own strengths and then allows the team to become stronger as a result.
Have you had your team for a long while, your sailing team now? Or are there people who are in and out of the team? I don't know.
Yeah, it varies. So the World Match Racing Tour changed from monohulls to multi-hulls about this time 2 years ago. So up until 2 years ago, I'd had a fairly consistent team over the years in monohull racing and had been able to develop a very strong team in the way I've described. In the last 2 years, we've changed into the multi-hulls, which has been quite new for me. And it's really been about establishing a new team and trying to, again, establish the team and culture and the way the team functions. And honestly, I don't feel that we're really there yet. We've had some good moments. We've won quite a few regattas, but I still feel there's a long way to go and a lot of improvement to be made.
So how do you look for the new crew member? How do you know what to look for?
Well, I think that has become more challenging because with the new boats, understanding exactly what is required as the skipper has actually been quite difficult for me because of the new boats. So for sure, I've looked to get experience in the multi-hulls. You're looking for people in multi-hulls who are much more light-footed and much quicker to move around the boat because the movement is very important. But at the same time, you still need people with sail trimming skills to make sure the boat's fast, good handling skills and good tactical skills. So it's not vastly different, but I think the constituency is a bit younger because the physicality is higher. So you're really looking for the same skills, but in maybe a slightly smaller pool of people. Also that you're looking for people with experience in multi-hulls, which again is a smaller pool of people than there is experience in monohulls. So yes, it's difficult to find the right team, but I've been very lucky to sail with some great sailors. The team is very strong, and really we're trying to move forward and still really trying to work out how to allocate the roles and responsibilities on board.
It's about trimming, in a way.
Yes, I mean, interestingly, this regatta we're doing here, the M32 World Championships, is very, very different from the regatta we did last week, which was the GKSS Match Cup Sweden. These races are 30 or 40 minutes long with 1 nautical mile roughly courses, whereas the Match Cup Sweden is 10 or 15-minute races, a lot more action and a lot faster paced, much more about fast decision making, whereas the longer courses are much more strategic decision making. And yes, a lot more about the way the boat is set up and tuned as opposed to how it's sort of handled in the moment. So it has been quite a different challenge.
I can see how this could be applied to working life or to leadership.
Well, the thing with sailing, and especially the racing we do on the World Match Racing Tour, is all the decisions are very time critical. So having a communication structure that allows the right information to be provided at the right moment is, in my view, really important to accurate decision making. You don't have time to ask all the questions that you might want to ask before you have to make a decision. You have to have the information there when the decision comes. So we work very hard in our debriefs at pre-deciding what the important information is going to be for particular areas of the course, particular decisions that are coming, and making sure that whoever it is that's making the decision, because it's not always me, sometimes I'll hand off a decision to a tactician, for example. Whoever's making that decision, making sure they have all the relevant information at the time to be able to make the decision. So it is a lot about structure and about team structure, making sure you have the best person available to make a tactical decision, for example, and also then knowing who that person is and making sure that everybody is feeding them the information that they need to make that decision.
Also, I mean, sailing, it hasn't been so visible to know where to go to see these races, and it's the same with shipping maritime. I mean, we are called the Cinderella industry. No one knows about us.
Yes.
I think that the M32, it has become more visible. The audience is taking into the race in a way. Does that make the competition more fun, or are you affected by it, that there is a lot of people watching?
I think it's great for events like GKSS Match Cup Sweden to have such big crowds here in Marstrand. This is one of the best regattas in the world in that regard. And it is a lot of fun for us as sailors to have a lot of people watching and interested in what we're doing. I'm not sure that it affects really what we do. Once you're out on the water, you almost forget about the people watching. But it certainly, it makes you feel that what you're doing has maybe, some more importance if there are other people interested. Of course, that's not really, the main reason. The main reason we do it is because we enjoy the competition ourselves. But for sure, having more interest is good for us.
It must be good for the sport as such to have more people watching. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yes, it is. And it's not a sport, as you say, that lends itself to people watching unless you can get it in it. There are a few venues, not many as good as Marstrand in the world, where you can get good quality sailing and be close to the spectators on the shore at the same time is very difficult to achieve.
And also to be a spectator and be able to follow the race on a big screen in this digital era is also interesting. That happened last summer, I think.
Yes, I think that the technology available now to cover sailing is obviously improving all the time. I think the introduction of cameras on drones has made a big difference to our sport and the visibility of our sport. Because if you can get an elevated view of the race, it gives a much better view. And in the past, we had to use helicopters, which of course are very expensive. So the drone footage that we're getting now and the speed that the data can be transmitted from the water as well back to the shore and then disseminated means that the quality of the live footage that we're getting for sailing is now much better than it was. And I think it makes a big difference to the people watching that they can really follow the race.
Is it used afterwards? Does sailor use that footage afterwards, like other sports?
Yes, absolutely. We often go back, especially last week with Match Cup Sweden was shown live. So you get hours and hours of footage of sailing, and we watch ourselves, we watch other strong teams to see what techniques they're using, and you really can learn from the other teams from that footage about different techniques that other teams are using that you can then look at and see if they might be better on our boat.
Because that must be something new. I mean, yeah, it has been there for a while, but in the old days, no one could watch themselves to see what...
No, absolutely, and that sort of side of technology is important. We carry a camera on board as well, which we video, and we go over that footage as well to see if, to help our debriefs and really sort of bring clarity, because often something's not working, but you're not quite sure what, and every job on... Any maneuver on the boat, every job is busy. So there's not actually anybody that can see what everybody else is doing to see if there's something that's not going right. So having the camera footage is a big help on that.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, development.
Yes, absolutely. And it's amazing how technology can help that.
Yeah, and also I can understand the equipment. Your equipment must have been developed. As you said, it's not a monohull anymore, but there must be a constant development of the equipment that you are working with.
Well, these boats are one design boats, the M32. So they do have some development, but that's within the class. We're not allowed to develop the boats. We have to keep them the same. And then on the Match Cup Sweden boats, again, the M32, but they're actually provided to us by the organisers. So they're just kept exactly the same. So it's entirely about the skill of the team that goes to the result. For a World Match Racing Tour event like GKSS Match Cup Sweden, it's all about the skill of the team because the boats are supplied and identical.
You must be travelling constantly, or?
Yes, it is a lot of travel. I make it about half the time that I'm away from home, which can be hard with a young family. We tried to get them to come where possible, and it's nice to have Shireen and Joshua with me this week. But it is a lot of travelling, and that's one of the hard things about it. But at the same time, I would be very lucky to be able to do what I do, so you can't really complain.
No, of course. So that might be a logistical question that pops up in my head. How does the boat travel to Oslo from here?
The boat, RM32, gets packed up after this regatta. So taken apart, it takes the team between 1 and 2 hours to pack it down, depending on how...
in a container?
Onto a trailer. So the trailer has a big box that all the components go into. The hull sits on top of the box, and then the mast sits on top of that. in two parts. The mast goes into two parts. The trailer's about 11 meters long, and it hitches up to the back of a large car, can tow it because the boats are very light. So the trailer all up is about a ton, I think. So it's quite easy to tow behind. You don't need a lorry for it. So yes, it'll pack up. They'll drive it north and take it across the ferry to Norway and then down south to Risør.
Because Jack was sponsoring the Volvo Ocean Race. And at that time, I met with Lucas, and he had been traveling the world with the boats.
For the Volvo Ocean Race, the main logistics job is not delivering the boats, because obviously the boats sail from port to port. It's delivering the hospitality, the hospitality tents and activation, the race village, essentially. And I believe that's right, because the sailing boats are so fast now. They get to the next port faster than you can get all the equipment packed up, loaded on a ship and taken to a port. So they had two sets that were jumping from one port, not to the next one, but to the one after that, in order to manage those logistics. But yes, GAC do that for the Volvo Ocean Race. They're doing the next Volvo Ocean Race as well.
Yeah, so it's coming to Gothenburg again.
Yes, yeah. Well, it has to, doesn't it? If it's the Volvo Ocean Race. But I think that'll be a great regatta. I'm really looking forward to it. I've had a lot of friends who are in the teams, actually a lot of ex-teammates from GAC Pindar who have joined various Volvo Ocean Race teams. So it'll be really interesting to see who comes out ahead.
Yeah, I can understand that. Did you ever have a role model when you were young?
I've not really sort of felt there's one person particularly. Of course, your parents are your role models. As a sportsman, I did a lot of sports when I was young. I only really started focusing mostly on sailing when I went to university at 19. When I was at school, I played a lot of rugby and hockey, and then sailed in the summer. So I didn't sort of follow sailing especially closely back then. It really became a...
So what got you hooked on sailing?
I think probably that I had some success in it. We won a big regatta in New Zealand when I was about 17, and that's, I think, opened my eyes to the world, really, of professional sailing, going to New Zealand and seeing what was going on down there. And it was only really at that time that I thought it might be the possibility of being a professional sailor or taking it, it being my main sport. So that was what really, really inspired me, was that trip, going down to New Zealand and winning the regatta down there and realizing that maybe I could do well in the sport.
Yeah, different life I can understand from everything else. What do you do in addition to sailing? You don't do anything but sailing. Well, your wife would agree.
For work. No, sailing is my only income. So
and
yes,
some speeches then, or maybe that is included.
Well, I think yes, that's part of it. I do some talks both for GAC, but also during the America's Cup, I did some talks just for general public. I do some commentary work, but everything was evolved around the sport now. When I quit my job as a lawyer, I really decided that I was already quite a bit behind people of similar age in the sport because they'd been full-time for much longer. But I really needed to devote as much time as I could to the sport and improving my skills in the sport. So that was the decision that I took, was not to carry on doing any legal work, but really to devote myself to improving my sailing.
Thank you very much. I won't keep you. I know that you've got a lot to do.
No problem. No, thank you. Glad we finally caught up.
Finally,
Managed to...
very nice. Thank you very much.
To do it. Right. No, thank you, Lina.
Okay.
Thank you, Ian. You had so many good ideas, and if I relate that to the last episode, number 70, with Geir Isene, I think it's interesting the way you have to think to put together a good team, to solve a problem, or to just do a good job. I have just come back from Oslo. Last week I spent 3 days in Oslo, and I recorded 10 interviews. I was totally exhausted when I came back from Oslo, but I had so many good chats, so many good conversations, and I'm happy to report that they will last until it becomes summer next year. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I have followed Ian, and I know that he has won more races since I last spoke to him. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I have to run. There are more episodes in pipeline for you. But for now, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.